Good afternoon. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation and Treaty 3 territory. My name is Neil Harden. I am chairing today's panel. With me via Zoom is Ian Mahone, and in the room is Doug Marks. The assessor today is Jason Brown, and the administrative personnel today is Louise Boiley. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the business assessment rule in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act and the City of Winnipeg Charter. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we'll limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by council and is independent of it in the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed and recorded and will be part of the public record. We'll be hearing items 5, 6, and 8 on the docket today. Ms. Boiley, please affirm the assessor's and applicant's testimony.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Jason Brown.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Ayrton Neufeld.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right. Before we begin, I'd like to apologize if my voice sounds a little squeaky or unsteady today, and that I'm recovering from a case of COVID late last week. So I ask your forbearance here. Okay, so the first property today is 633 Goldsby Street. So Jason, you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to point out that the first two files on this docket are the same property. There's a lot of repeating evidence in these two files, so I'm going to go over the first one in details, and the second one I'll more just go over the attributes of that PID. So first file is 22-4827. This is located at 633 Goldsby Street. Business assessment ID is 337, and the owners are Price Industries Limited. This is owner occupied. So this is a large building. It used to be 634 Raleigh, but we had a replot recently, which is why these are on different roll numbers now, but both of these are on the same roll number. So we have a total area for this premise of 247,280 square feet. We've applied a base ARV rent of $4.42 per square foot. This gives us our base ARV of $1,092,978. We've applied costs to occupy at $2.50 per square foot for the whole portion for heat, electricity, and water, and 18,515 square feet of air conditioning. This gives total occupancy costs of 521,277 for the total ARV assessment of 1,614,240. I have some rental comparables on page 2. These are all the comparables of 75,000 square feet plus. I believe there's 12 of them. 14, sorry. So we can see the reported areas range from 77,600 square feet at the bottom up to 228,484 square feet. These have a range in rent per square foot from starting at $4.50 all the way up to $9 a square foot. On the following page, page 3, these are the comparables from the realty appeal. You'll see some similar ones, some repeating ones, but once again, all large areas. You'll notice the 2 at the bottom are smaller. Those are office, so they're not relevant to this assessment. But if we just look at the top 100,000 square foot plus, we can see a range from starting at $4 all the way up to $6.95. Map and aerial view on page 4, located in the northeast quadrant. Aerial view below that, the sister property is located, it's the triangular shape on the west side of the highlighted one. External street view shot on page 5. We have the realty order on page 6. Showing that they confirm the rents on this area and the next area, and they did cut the office portion, the 42,940 square foot portion. We can see the workup on the following page. So they cut the first PID 436 from $816 down to $6, but the other 2 PIDs remained at $442 and $448. We're hearing PID 430 today at 442. I have comparable photographs of the comparables starting on page 8. There's one photograph of each comparable on each page. So comp 1 starting on page 8, comp 2, page 9. And then I'll just let you guys go through those. Obviously, comp 4, the Amazon on Regent is going to be highly superior. Comp 5 is also superior, has some retail aspects to it. But I feel like the following, the rest of the comparables are all very comparable to the subject property. And they're all paying a higher rent than what we're defending today. So based on that, we ask that the assessment or the ARV be confirmed at 1,614,240. And I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Okay, questions, Mr. Neufeld?
Yes, thank you. Do you, generally speaking, you would agree that larger square footages generally warrant a smaller net rate per square foot, considering economies of scale?
Yeah, that's definitely a variable in rent. Obviously, there's a lot of factors in determining a rent: age, location, size, quality.
Right, but if 2 identical buildings, one's 100,000, one's 200,000, that's the only difference. The net per square foot rate would be lower.
Generally, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then so looking at I guess the realty workup makes the best sense on your page 7, just to look at this. So you've got one at 247,000 and one at 129 now, and relatively close rents. Now, if we were putting those bids together, and it's saying they're at about, I guess, 380, would that do you think the model rent would have came out a little lower than 442?
It's potentially that could be potentially the case. However, I believe the 129 area is significantly newer. That was an addition.
Right. Yeah.
And
no,
so
I guess so. Yeah.
And it's only 6 cents more per square foot. So I feel like even just the newness could be attributed to that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that between the 2 of them, yeah, that I would agree with that actually too, because I think economies of scale between the two is lined up quite well. It's just that the smaller
If you
one,
combine them, it could go down a bit. That's feasible.
yeah, okay, all right, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Okay, why were these separated? I actually don't know.
Because of the age. The 129 was an addition, so it's significantly newer than the 247.
Okay, so that's
And
why it's
because they have
separated.
different attributes, yeah.
So that yeah, okay, and that makes sense for realty. Why were the business IDs separated?
That I don't know.
Okay.
I looked back. I wondered if it had to do with the replot, but it looks like it's been like this for a while.
Okay. Yeah, I was just looking at that. I wasn't really sure. I think your comps, you explained them quite well. There's some better ones and some ones that are more comparable, and that's fair. So I won't don't really have any questions there. And yeah, okay, no, that's great. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Ian, any questions?
Just one for confirmation purposes and for the record, the border revision order that you've attached does have a different, does have the 634 Raleigh Street. You've explained at the start that this was divided into the 633 and 639 Goldsby. Just confirming that the border revision order that you've attached as part of your brief relates to this property?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I've got no other questions.
Okay, Doug, any questions?
No questions for me at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, question I have then. Okay, total area is 247,280. But the areas of heat, light, and water are 239,440. Why is that?
That's a good question. There is potentially a small section without heat, water, or electricity. But that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's the discrepancy? It's about 8,000 square feet.
Yeah, that's bigger than my house. I wish I had 8,000.
Yeah. I'm just seeing if I can pull up some information here.
Would that be the loading dock area?
It could be.
Yeah, and it's unusual not to see it separated out by the assessment too, right? Like you'd usually see a second entry equaling the difference.
Yeah, I don't see any explanation readily available here.
Okay, we'll leave it as a mystery then. So Mr. Neufeld, you can begin your presentation.
Thank you. I will just say we did actually miss that as well. I haven't had this confirmed, but I do think that I would imagine that the assessment department is taking out an unheated portion. So I do just want to adjust my costs slightly to reflect that. My costs will match the 521,277 that the assessor has for a total request of 1,250,748. 1,250,748, and that's just using my same rent and then the costs that are on the assessment. I think like I said, I couldn't confirm this, but this building's gigantic, and they've been building hodgepodge, kind of adding parts as you go along whenever they need the space, and I think it's likely an assessor had found an area that had no costs, and that is more than reasonable to assume, I think. In terms of rent, so this building itself is 376,000 square feet. This complex is about 550,000 square feet. DH Price also owns, if you go to my page 2, 600 Goldsby, 634 Raleigh, which is what we're looking at, and 675 Goldsby. So a total of 550,000. And the reason I asked about economies of scale is if you really are looking at this all together, I do think the model would spit out a smaller rent. I think what the assessment is doing is they separate it for a newer and older space, but the rents kind of line up because of economy of scale. But if you're really adding the whole complex, it would go down even lower. I think that sort of is sort of missed there. This one here is the older portion. We're using 295. We have a number of rents. They do get kind of trickier as you go bigger because there isn't really people renting space this size. The rent we applied was the 1090, our very last one, the Sure one there, 175,000. It's 2 years at the time. I believe it had renewals. We didn't show it there though. On my page 4 was another assessment where the argument made mostly was based on equity for business tax. As we should know, and it's on my page 16 if we need to read the legislation, but with business taxes, we do try to have the assessments be fair in relation to other assessable property, and that is in the legislation in section 1716 of the Winnipeg Charter. So the concept being that while it is based on rental value, it is a tax on the business itself, not the real estate. It's tax on the business that's operating there. We generally try to make the concept is to make similar businesses to have similar assessments. This property here, the argument at 870 La Jamodier, it's a large 445,000 square foot property. I believe the realty rent was actually higher than the business rent, and that's just because there were other large properties of this nature which were much lower, and that 381 would be more applicable to this entire building, I would say. And I think too that like we've got a bit of a different method of looking at business assessments than realty. All in all, I think the 442 and 448 doesn't really reflect this building. If EH Price, for sake of argument, was going to demolish this entire building and start scratch, they would likely be able to reduce their footprint by 550,000 square feet to maybe even 100,000 lower. The number is not. That's kind of just a bit of an estimate, but. When you have a building of this nature, portions are at 1960 and they're just building additions as they need the area, you're not going to have the most fluent and usable space. You're going to have a lot of areas that are essentially dead space that don't really help the operation. When if you were to start fresh, it would, you'd get more state-of-the-art space and you'd be able to do less would be a lot more in that situation. Very, very atypical building in our city. You've got probably only about 5 or 6, 7 that are this large. It's common. I think we'd see New Flyer and Motor Coach were similar, where they started off in older buildings and they make additions as they go along and need space, and it is not the most optimal use of the space, but it is what it is. It's what they have, and it's the best they could do. For that reason, we just felt that the 446 wasn't really accurate, and the 295 would be a little more appropriate. And the final number and request is again 1,250,748. Thank you.
Give me that number again.
1,250,748.
So it needs to be rounded then.
I think that's divisible by 12. That's how I did it, but maybe that's
has to be divisible by 12, ending in 0.
Ending in 0, right? Okay, yeah. So I did.
Or 5.
I heard you talking about that earlier. I will trust your rounding.
It would be 1,250,760.
760. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Brown?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess just one statement for clarification regarding the unheated 8,000 square feet.
Okay.
So if we look at Mr. Neufeld's page 2, I believe if you see where it says 675 Goldsby, There's a metal Quonset to the right of that. That's about 8,000 square feet. So I believe that's the space in question.
I can't confirm that, but that makes that I believe that
Yeah,
you wouldn't.
it just makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so going forward, so just for clarification, you're seeking a lower rent and partially based on that decision. And is that Maple Leaf?
Yeah, yes, correct.
Okay, so roughly the same size, 400,000 square feet plus. That one got put to 381, but you're seeking 295?
Yeah, I think if you added the other one in, we're at 347. So we are a bit, it's as an
Okay.
average, it's still lower than Maple Leaf. This property, I think itself is a lot of mixed parcels, but then based on the argument of equity, 381 on the average of both of these would not be unreasonable.
Okay, thanks. Those are my questions.
Okay, Doug, any questions?
No questions for me, thank you.
Ian, any questions?
I do with respect to your page 3, the industrial rental rates.
Sure.
You indicated that the Sherwin, what is it, 1093 Sherwin at the 175,000 square feet was your closest comparable, or the comparable you were going to be indicating was the most relevant?
Yeah, I mean, that's just the one we chose. I think it's really tricky to pick what's exactly relevant in this situation, but yeah, that's the number that was applied. I think all of these larger ones do have some relevance, and the main thing being that you can sort of see as they get bigger, the rents generally go down by square foot.
Okay, and you don't have a current lease on Sherwin because I see it expired.
No, I don't. Yeah, so
Okay, and okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, and I have no questions, so thank you for that. We'll move on to the second half of this property, I guess. 639 Gillespie. Okay, you can begin, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is file 22-4482. Civic address is 639 Goldsby Street. Business assessment ID is 508, and once again, Price Industries Limited. For this file, we're defending a total area of 129,359 square feet at a base ARV of $4.48 per square foot. We've applied occupancy cost of $2.50. This time to the whole area except for air conditioning at $85,190. So total occupancy costs at $307,938 added to the base ARV of $579,528. This generates our total annual rental value of $887,460. Once again, we have those same comparables on page 2 and 3. And then the same photographs of the subject and the comparables and the realty workup and the realty order. So based on that, we ask that the assessment be confirmed at $887,460. Thank you.
Okay, questions, Mr. Neufeld?
Nothing additional. Thank you. Just the same questions from the last property, if they could be logically applied.
Okay, Ian?
Just with respect to the age, this is, well, you calculated a slightly higher rental rate of 6 cents. You indicated that was probably or possibly because of the age, this being a newer construction. Do you have the difference in age, or do you have the date of construction on this? I might have missed it in your brief.
I believe I do. Like Ayrton said, this has been built in many different areas. It's a bit of a piecemeal, but I can see what I'm having trouble with my map right now. Okay, so we have 10 different building sections.
Oh, okay. Is that
Starting in 76, three of them in 76. There's a 4,800 square foot addition in 2000. It's all over the place. There's some 1998. There's two 2000s. There's a 2007. They're all about 5,000 to 10,000 square feet additions. So, but the main building area of 150,000 was 1960, and then there's been some hodgepodge additions since then.
And this 129 is part of the 10 buildings that you just mentioned?
Correct. And same with the previous 247.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just thinking a little bit more on the adjustments for age and economies of scale and that. And I've seen this in a number of other properties where they make separate things. And it seems to me it takes away from the economies of scale and puts more weight on the age in that. Could that not be better accomplished by applying an effective age to the whole structure and then using the economies of scale to determine a rental rate?
Unfortunately, I don't believe our system works that way, which is why you see it done this way. However, if you look at my comps, there is generally economies of scale is a thing. We're not going to argue with that. But if you look at my comps, it's not quite as clear that the bigger it gets, the lower the rent goes. So my two biggest comparables at 205 and 228 are at 595 and 633, which are pretty smack dab in the middle of my rents. One of my lowest rents is at 89,000 square feet, which is significantly lower than some of those comps. So while it does exist, it's only one of the factors. Quality, location, quality are also major factors.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Neufeld, your presentation now.
Thank you. I think like most of it was touched on with the other property. This is the same realty role. This we did use as a rent of 347 just to account for some of the newer space. I think it's fair to mention too. I mean, if you've got a portion here that's newer, let's say it's 50,000 square feet that's built recently, that's not quite as attractive as a building that might be across the street built exactly the same that's on its own at 50,000 square feet. I think what often they said the model will do is they'll look at, like we're talking about, we'll look at quality, age, construction, all that kind of thing, and then you kind of apply it to other properties. So when you see it being separated out like this, I would think that the model is actually taking fresher, newer properties that are, similar style properties to this assessment bid without taking into account that it actually still has 250,000 square feet in there that aren't necessarily adding value to it, as opposed to something that's standalone with its own parking lot, its own ability to expand and everything. So the model, I would assume, would imagine, really does miss that point. And that's why I would agree as well. I mean, effective ages can have their own challenges, but I would think that that would be much more indicative to, or much more appropriate to use them all together for that purpose. And I understand the challenges. They're saying that that might make it more heavily based on economies of scale and ignore some of the area, but I think what they're instead doing is going the exact opposite direction and then almost ignoring economies of scale. If you essentially, so like I said, I did use a 347 on this and 295 on the other, but essentially what we're really asking for is 313 on the total. We did separate it because the assessment did. I think in the past we've just done this as one rent, but we didn't necessarily disagree that newer space would be renting higher. So they had already done that. And so we just put in a higher rent, but we don't agree with how high. I think there's a bit more, you can see based on our request, we're looking for 50 cents, give or take, difference between the two bids, where the city's only looking at 6 cents different. I would suggest that there should be a bigger contrast on the two. based on a number of factors. Just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. And again, too, I think the issue is obviously they're not really, because they're being treated separately, they're not taking each other into effect, where the marketplace has to. 639 Goldsby does not exist without 633 Goldsby, and therefore the assessment needs to reflect them both together. My request today is 756,810. Thank you.
All right. Questions, Mr. Brown?
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Questions, Doug?
None for me, thank you.
Okay, Ian?
Just one quick question with respect to the data plot on page 3. The points that are plotted, sorry, my dog seems to be quite annoyed in the background of something.
Mine too.
The data plotted by the graph, those are your data comparables or data points comparables of your industrial rental rates?
Yeah, so often when we get to properties that, yes, sorry, let me answer that first. Yes, everything above on that same page is the data. So every little blue dot is one of these rents above it. And when you get to rents like these, I mean, I think the best thing to do is to take the closest rent and apply it. But when there is not really that doesn't really happen, I think what we tend to do is go to the data plot, and this is the median. I think because this is newer and older and also built in stages, you know, this could go either way, either side of it. But I think on average, we kind of felt that the newer space was counteracted by the fact that there is such a hodgepodge kind of adding and additions to this. So, but yes, to answer that, that's everything on that page is shown in the table above it.
And you haven't included as data points or for plotting purposes any of the comparables as applied by the assessment and taxation, the city?
No, I mean, this is our data. If you can see the ones that say COW in bold there, most of them, those are actually rents that were provided by the city that we could verify and or at least not necessarily see leases, but we were able to feel comfortable applying them in our own logic. We don't always take the city's data for face value strictly because they generally come from the mailers, which is questionable at sometimes. And I think data analysis that we do is generally more in depth than is with the lease and with the generally by interviewing the owners too, if there is any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and I have no questions, so let's move on to the final property of 50 Burnett. Okay, Mr. Brown on 50 Burnett.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. File number 22-4773. Civic address is 50 Burnett Avenue. Business assessment ID is 51567. And the business owner is Fukumoto Fitness Limited. So we have area of 5,000 square feet. We've applied a base ARV of $11.92 to that 5,000 square feet. This generates the base ARV of $59,600. To that, we've applied $2.50 for cost to occupy to the whole 5,000 square feet. This generates an additional cost of $12,500. And then when we add those together, it gives us our annual rental value of $72,120. Below that, we have the subject lease information. This shows as owner occupied. It says no. However, I did some further investigation and it actually is owner occupied. So the owners did indicate that they weren't owner occupied and that they were paying $11.50 a square foot in 2020. However, that must be some type of book rent because we know now that they are owner occupied. So I have 6 comparables listed below, ranging from 2,670 square feet up to 6,800 square
Technical
feet.
issues here. Mr.
Well,
Brown,
Okay,
sorry. Oh, sorry, we're just having some technical issues here.
yeah, it says bandwidth is low on my screen. Is that coming from my side or?
I don't know if it's our side or her side. We're on the city one, so like we might all be on the same bandwidth here.
yeah, you were kind of breaking up there, Louise.
Am I? Okay. Well, there's
Mr.
not a whole lot I can do to change the bandwidth. But
Mr. Chairman and Ayrton, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, largely.
Mostly.
Some breaking up.
Okay.
it's better now.
Okay, do you want me to start over or?
No, just keep going. I think we're okay to this
I
point.
think we got it. Yeah, most of it, yeah.
Okay, so I'll start. So I have 6 comparables ranging from 2,670 square feet up to 6,800 square feet. The leases start from 2016 to 2020, and we can see the reported rent per square foot ranging from 11 to 13. Once again, on page 2, we have the comparables from the realty assessment. These have a range from 3,168 square feet up to, once again, 6,800 square feet. And a range in rent from 1018 up to 1533. Realty workup located on page 3. We have aerial map view and aerial photographs on page 4 and 5. And exterior and interior shots on page 6 and 7. Page 8 shows the Board of Revision Realty Order, where they did confirm the assessment and taxation department NOI. And then page 9 just shows their tenant verification form. So you can see it's not very clear, but they did not tick off owner occupied. We've since found out that it is owner occupied. They bought this building in 2015. I have photographs of the comparables on the following pages. Quite a not perfect comparables for the subject, but I would say comps 5 and 6 are very close. Comp 6 looks a bit nicer, but it does also contain a fitness gym similar to the subject. And so based on that evidence, we ask that the ARV be confirmed at 72,120. Thank you.
Okay, questions, Mr. Newfield?
Yes, thank you. The interior, I see you got a picture there. I don't know if have you been in here?
I have not.
Not, no, yeah. I mean, just based on the pictures though, but would you kind of agree that with the exception of paint and some gym floors, that this is as basic as finish could really be?
It's a very standard storage warehouse, yes.
Okay. And then, so your comps, I saw what you're doing, and I actually think a lot of the buildings make sense. A lot of them have kind of their office sort of retail though, so they could probably be a little higher finish. Is that?
That's very accurate. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, the carpet one, it's not going to have
Right,
comp
yeah.
number 3. It's not going to have a lot of interior finish, and it's similar brick construction, similar, but maybe a slightly better location. So.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's fair. And then the last one, you've got a gym in there, but that would have it looks like it's got about twice the height.
Yeah, it looks like it's been renovated.
Okay. Yeah, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Doug?
Mine have been answered, thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Neufeld, you can begin then.
Thank you. I'm going to start by just kind of touching on the realty. This one had a high rent, a low cap, and a land component. I kind of think all 3 of those are potentially possible, but not all at the same time in the same property. We kind of felt like if you're going to assess it higher based on the land ratio, which isn't outrageously high, but it does have a fair bit of land. Then it's you kind of have to pick how you're going to do it. Our view is that the 1192 was high rent based on the land, and then they also added the land component, and maybe the assessment department would disagree, which is fair, but I kind of think they are almost double dipping in that sense. Really this just boils down to a rent disagreement. We felt as though it should rent lower than a typical, I guess you call this sort of retail, not quite industrial, because it isn't. They do have people going in there for more than just storing boxes, but it is really as basic as it can be. It is a gym, but it's not really finished any better than it would be if it wasn't a gym. Our rents we applied was, I'm going through a million different tabs here. We applied 8. I closed it, sorry. Yeah, so we have applied 8. Perfect comps in this situation are not necessarily the case. I think the building itself is more this industrial style for these industrial rents that you will see. But because it is sort of being used as a gym, we were comfortable going with a bit higher. And of course, too, that land is there. We would have just built the land, or we would have considered that having a large portion of land as part of the rent instead of adding excess land to it. Built in 1963, just a bit of a rent disagreement, and that's all I really have to say. Thank you.
All right, questions, Mr. Brown?
Just, you know what? I don't. Thank you, though.
Okay, Doug, questions?
None for me, thank you.
Ian?
No, I don't, thank you.
Okay, so Ayrton, you're saying $8 a square foot?
Yeah.
Which is your best comparable then?
Yeah, I had a feeling that question was coming, so I was trying to find one. I mean, I guess when you look at these ones in St. James on my small rental rates, number 4, that would kind of be an area that has a bit of a retail component, but they are industrial buildings that are kind of being used retail-y. So retail-y, I just made that up. I shouldn't say things like that, but they're used in a retail environment. I think generally those St. James border, that kind of area is very comparable and something that you would see. So like the 1503 and 1475.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. I've got no more questions.
Thank you.
So I guess that concludes today's hearing. We've heard all items on the agenda today, so that concludes today's hearing. And thank you, gentlemen, for your capable presentations.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ayrton, and thank you,
Thank
panel
you.
members.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good day.
Thank you.